Retro racing reports from two speedways this time around, Ascot Park and Santa Maria Speedway. This is May 30th and 31st, 1964. May 30th was a Saturday. They raced Saturday night at Ascot Park, and they raced Sunday afternoon up at Santa Maria. This is a CRA salute to Indianapolis. We have two programs. They are both very similar. Little changes here and there. Completely filled out, so all of the data is intact. There are no race recaps from the week before, anything of that nature. But since we're doing a salute to Indianapolis, there's a longish article by Pat Hanna about the Indy 500 and Indianapolis Motor Speedway itself. Be sure to like and subscribe. I'd sure appreciate that. And follow us on Facebook at Retro Racing Reports. That's pretty easy to remember. So here we go. Indianapolis, Mecca of American automobile racing by Pat Hanna. Back at the turn of the century, when old Dobbin was still the main method of locomotion used by the majority, and only a very few intrepid and brave souls owned that newfangled contraption referred to as the automobile, four men, visionaries really, who realized that the course of history would be changed, and soon, by the new invention, were far-sighted enough to know that a gigantic testing laboratory should be built. A racetrack was the obvious answer, one where all the latest inventions, innovations, and developments could be tested before they were passed on to the motoring public. An idea was born in the minds of Carl Fisher, James Allison, A.C. Newby, and Frank H. Wheeler. And in 1909, their dream of a 2.5-mile oval became reality when they pooled all their resources, ideas, and dreams to build what would one day become the greatest race course in the world, the Mecca of automobile racing in America, Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Indianapolis Speedway was located inside a 559-acre site just west of Indianapolis, and it was dedicated to the proposition that the infant motor car would mature strong and great. This was the creed of the Speedway founders, and this is the creed that still survives 55 years later. The dirt track was opened on August 19, 1909, with 3 gala days of sprint car racing. The one and only great Barney Oldfield set a new world record in a Benz when he averaged 83.2 miles per hour for 1 mile. When the last roaring engine had died out, though, and the last of the straggling spectators vanished, it was obvious to the founders that they must pave the track in order to protect their drivers and make racing safer. 3,200,000 paving bricks were required for the vast undertaking, and in December of that same year, the last brick was laid in time for a series of sprint races. The first 500-mile classic was run in 1911. It was good old American ingenuity that won the race, for Ray Haroon driving a Marmon Wasp averaging 74.59 miles per hour. In one fell swoop, Haroon eliminated approximately 200 pounds with a clever little gadget that you and I have taken for granted for many years. It was a rear-view mirror. It enabled Haroon to see for himself if the opposition was coming up to pass him. This, coupled with a fuel pump he installed in a convenient position where he himself could operate it while driving with one hand, and did away with the necessity of the riding mechanic. So he was the only driver in the race who went solo. Haroon had one more trump up its sleeve: 8 shock absorbers to ease his ride over the bricks. That's a little item that nearly all the competition overlooked, much to their chagrin. The automobile world learned much from that first race. They knew now the need for sturdier tires. One driver alone suffered 13 tire failures. There was also a need for lighter and more efficient engines, for stronger metals, for better suspension and chassis and better handling, more oil economy. Thus it began, and needs continue to arise today. Courageous and brave men of Gasoline Alley, both mechanics and drivers, began pitting all of their intelligence and ingenuity against mechanical failures and frailties, against time and speed, to ensure the motoring public a safer and better ride. Later, in the subsequent races, hydraulic shocks were developed, and every owner of a passenger car eventually benefited with improved riding and handling. As the speeds on the straightaways became greater, the emphasis was on better brakes. The answer came in the form of four-wheel hydraulic type. Duesenberg, a name revered in the manufacturing of automobiles, included these as standard equipment, and the entire industry followed suit. By the mid-30s, the Depression brought a demand for cars that would operate more economically, so the beginning of rigid restrictions on the amount of fuel and oil permitted in the race itself brought about improvements in oil and gas consumption. Torsion bars instead of conventional springs became available on passenger cars in 1955, 7 years after they had been in general use at Indianapolis. Fuel injection, used worldwide on race cars since 1953, has now found its way into the passenger car. Stronger frames, too, first used at Indianapolis, found their way to the motoring public. The actual racing strip at Indianapolis Speedway is the same challenging, four-cornered, 2.5-mile course today as it was in 1911. True, the bricks have now been covered with asphalt, except for a narrow strip at the start-finish line, for old time's sake. But the surface isn't much smoother now than it was then. The turns are still banked at only 9 degrees and 12 degrees. 1963 found Parnelli Jones taking a checkered flag after averaging 143.147 miles per hour. Compare that with Ray Haroon's average of 74.59, and it seems like quite a gap for a mere 54-year span. And the answer lies in improved equipment, because the race driver of yesteryear was just as daring and just as brave as the race driver of today. All the great race drivers who have left their mark at Indianapolis Speedway, George Wilbur Shaw, Louis Myers, Rex Mays, Bill Vukovich, A.J. Foyt, Roger Ward, just to name a few, have had one quality in common: an intense desire to excel by driving a car as fast as possible without violating the basic principle of safety. In a different era, they would have been the intrepid pioneers who braved the wilderness and settled new lands. As it is, they've pioneered the automobile world. It's these dedicated men who have taken calculated risks to determine the exact point at which the ever-present specter of danger is capable of materializing into something real and inescapable, who have made motoring safer and more pleasurable for all of us. Whenever temporary barriers to greater speed were encountered, these courageous men have solved the problem by testing improved equipment, better metals, rubber compounds, fuels, lubrication, and on and on. Indianapolis is steeped in glorious tales and sagas of men with courage, abounding in skill and ingenuity, excelling in sportsmanship, and the mark of true champions. It stands as a tribute to all those who have given of their last full measure. To those known as race car drivers, a strange breed of men who dare to accept the challenge knowing full well the tremendous risk involved, who meet danger head-on with all the ardor and enthusiasm in the world, it's only fitting that this Memorial Day we salute Indianapolis, the mecca of that great sport of champions, automobile racing, for indeed we of America can well be proud of the brave deed that are recorded here by both men and cars. So there you go. That's the story. Indianapolis, mecca of American automobile racing, as penned by Pat Hanna. Boy, that was tough to read through that too, because it wasn't really meant to be read aloud. So there we go. Hey, part of our fun on this one, CRA guys ran on Saturday at Ascot Park in Gardena, and then, as we mentioned, they were Sunday up at Santa Maria in the afternoon. As it happens, and the program was selected at random, there's a note in here that says this was the first ever race at the brand new track on Highway 101 just 2 miles north of Santa Maria. Yes, Santa Maria Speedway. So there it is. And sure enough, that was the opening day for Santa Maria Speedway. It's kind of fallen on some interesting times of late, but it's still running. What a great place to go catch a race. Something else I notice here as I'm going through 1964, primarily CRA programs and have a bunch of midget ones here as well, but when a race is promoted by CRA and Ascot Park, they refer to these cars as sprint cars. When it's promoted by Johnny Parsons, they call them big cars. These are the same drivers, the same cars. So this is that transitional era, and I know there gets to be some confusion with that, and some people get very territorial about such things. Well, it all depends on where you are, where you're located, and in the end, it doesn't much matter. It's the sport we love. There you go, Retro Racing Reports. CRA salute to Indianapolis. Be sure to subscribe and like. Put your comments down below.